Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. I have done a number of notebooking videos and I've done a multitude of notebooking posts, but there is one topic that I get asked about an awful lot that I have never actually tackled, and so that's what I'm going to share with you today, and that is notebooking with younger children. Now, I have to right off the bat point out that I personally, although notebooking is something that is really extensively and regularly used in our house, notebooking is not something that I do with my kids every day until they are usually around 8 or 9 years old. It's not something that happens daily with my littles. And that is simply because I prefer to work on the foundations with them. I want to make sure that they understand, how to read, and so I do phonics and those sorts of things. That is not to say that you can't do notebooking with younger children. It's just really a matter of preference. Now, I do notebooking sometimes with them, but it's not really a staple of their homeschool schedule like it is for my older children. So today I'm just going to share with you some things that I do use with my younger children when it comes to notebooking, or some other things that I know other people do with their younger children. And again, when I say younger children, what I'm really referring to are children who are not writing very much on their own yet, and that can really be a wide variety of ages, but for me, typically, that is usually up until they're around maybe 7 years old, that I will just work on foundational learning, and then I will move on to notebooking once they have a better grasp on writing skills. But first of all, I do want to point out that notebooking is not all writing. If you so choose, you can have your younger children who are not yet writing, they can do illustrations in their notebooks. So for example, if you are doing a read aloud with your children, they could actually narrate through illustrations, drawing a picture of something that you read about that day. They could also do notebooking through illustrations about different topics that you're learning about, or maybe a documentary that you watched together. And so this is something that I want you to remember, is that pictures can also tell stories, and depending on what they include in those pictures, it can really demonstrate to you their understanding of what was learned or listened to that day. But now I know that a lot of people, including myself, will start notebooking as a means of a gentler approach to writing. And so I'm just going to share with you just a couple of ways that you can have your younger children, your children who aren't writing very much yet, actually at least get a start on notebooking. And the very first way that you could actually do this with your children is by starting a little journal with them. And this could be something where they are telling stories. It could be something where they are talking about something that they did that day. But this isn't, again, something that they're going to be doing on their own if they're not writing yet. So I'm going to share with you what I have done with my own children with journaling. Here we go. So there are these wonderful primary composition books. And they have a space at the top, a blank space for drawing pictures, and then at the bottom they're primary lined for writing. And I don't know if you can see, I see that it's backwards because of how I have my phone. But what I actually do is I will ask my kids, what do you want to write today? And so, for example, my son wanted to say, spiders are awesome, they make their webs with their abdomens. So what I did is I wrote it myself. Spiders are awesome, they make webs with their abdomens, and then he copied it underneath. So Copywork is one way that you can have your younger children start notebooking. Now, I do have to say that while my son did copy it himself underneath what I wrote, it really depends on where they're at with their writing. Some kids might prefer just to illustrate it and have you write it because you can still read it with them and they can still see those words. Other children might prefer to trace the words that you wrote, and that is actually how my son has fine motor issues, and so that is actually how he started notebooking, was by tracing my letters, and then he moved on to copying what I wrote, and now he's a little bit older and he is writing on his own now. But that is a great way for you to get your younger children to start writing, is just by asking them what it is that they want to write. I'll show you some more examples. So you just ask them what it is that they want to write. You write it for them, and then they can choose to copy it, trace it, or maybe even just illustrate what it's all about. But that is a very easy transition, and I'm just going to show you later on in this. He did eventually then just start writing on his own. So it does happen. It's not something that you're going to have to do for years and years and years. It was actually a very short amount of time that I had to write it for him, and then he would copy it. So when you are doing that, when you are writing something for your children that they want you to write, that is a form of copy work. And that is another way that you can get younger children to write. And when my older kids do copy work, I've talked about this a number of times. Right now, they've been working through Shel Silverstein for probably a couple of years now. They really love Shel Silverstein. And so my older children, when they're doing copy work, they're doing pretty long passages of copy work, but that's not going to be the case with your younger children. You really want to do, or you really want to keep those copy work passages shorter, like even down to just a few words in a sentence. Or maybe if you would like to do memory verses, you could do like short Bible verses with your kids. There's even a website, I think it's called classicalcopywork.com, where you can get free weekly copy work emailed to you, and you just print it out and it sends it to you. You have a choice. You can either get it, I think, either in with the primary lines or for older children. And I will leave a link for that in the description box. That's another great thing that you can use with your kids. You could just get like maybe a little 3-pronged folder, print out those classical copy work printouts, and that's what you can have your kids do. Now, the free copy work comes once a week, but I do think that you can purchase bigger, well, not bigger, but packages in which you would get more copy work than just, say, one passage per week. But that is definitely an idea that you could do with your kids, is copy work, because they are seeing, even when you are just writing those few sentences, they are still getting how to spell things, where to use capitals, where periods are used. And, you know, how many kids have you seen that just love to copy things all the time? Even, you know, my 5-year-old now, even when she was like 3, she would find like a cereal box and she would start copying things off of it. Or somebody would leave a book on the floor and she would start copying words out of it. And this is something that a lot of kids naturally enjoy doing. So it's not going to seem, very often, it's not going to seem like work. This is going to be fun for them because they're feeling older, because they are writing just like, especially if they have older siblings, just like their older siblings are doing as well. So now this notebook that I have here is from my daughter, who's 8 now, and I'm just going to show you that in this one, what we did was, this was actually with our Beautiful Feet books around the world. And a lot of times what would happen is we would watch just a very short documentary on YouTube. Usually they were only like 3 or 4 minutes long. And then after the documentary was finished, I would go up to our whiteboard, which is right behind me, and I would ask my daughters, because there were 3 of them in the group at the time, I would say to them, what do you remember from the documentary? Or what did you learn about pandas today? And then they will each give me 1 or 2 things that they remember, and they have to be complete sentences. And while they are telling me these sentences, I will write it down for them. So after I have these several sentences written down on the whiteboard, I will then say to them, okay, and depending on their age, I might tell, say, my very youngest, I want you to pick 1 sentence for you to copy and for you to put in your Around the World notebook. Or as they get older, I might tell them, okay, you need to copy 2 or 3 sentences. You can choose which sentences you write, but I would like for you to copy 2 or 3 sentences. And that's what they do. They will then copy it off of the whiteboard and put it directly into their notebook. So if you see in that case, I'm not actually writing it specifically on their notebook for them. They're copying from the board. But if that is an issue with your kids, if it's something that they find a little bit harder and they think that it's easier to copy from the paper, as my son did, he never really liked copying off of the whiteboard. My daughters, they don't mind it so much. My son, he really liked to have it right in front of them. So really, this is just about tailoring it to what your kids need, as homeschooling is all about, and doing it that way. And you know, if you do have more kids, it can be hard to write it in each of their individual notebooks, which is why I'm glad that my daughters enjoy writing it right off of the whiteboard. But again, it's always an option to write it down for your kids. And I'm just going to tell you again, I'm going to try to find a link on Amazon for these notebooks. I think I might have gotten, oh, Staples. Yeah, I did get this at Staples. So you can get these at Staples. I'll try to find a link in Amazon too, and I'll try to leave a link there for you also, because just having the room for them to illustrate what they're talking about is something that most kids like to draw. So them illustrating really gives you a lot of a better understanding of what they are comprehending. So those are just a few ideas that I have on notebooking with younger children. And I just want you to remember that notebooking is a process. It's not something that even older children who have never done it before, they're not going to jump in and automatically be rock stars at it. Well, some kids might be, but most kids will not automatically jump into notebooking and just be awesome at it. So you have to remember, just give them time to transition to it. Give them a little bit and then let them move on to a little more and then a little more. Just as my son did with his journal, you know, where I started writing the sentence for him where he traced it and then I wrote it and then he would start copying it underneath it. And then he moved on to just writing on his own at the end. And that is really how it works. You know, it is a process, and kids develop in their own timeline. You know, this isn't something that you have to say, okay, you can only trace my words for 2 weeks, but then you have to start writing them. It's not about that. Just really give your kids the opportunity to grow at their own pace, this is all about meeting their needs. I say this all the time. You're not in a race, and you don't need to compare one child with the other child, because even as I was telling you before, how my daughters don't mind writing off the whiteboard and my son didn't like it. All kids are different, and that is okay. It doesn't mean that one child is better than the other or one child is smarter than the other. It doesn't mean that at all. It simply means that they need to approach things differently. And so sometimes that requires a little bit of ingenuity and creativity from you as the parent. But that is, you know, that is the fun thing about homeschooling, is just being able to have that flexibility to help them the best. So I think that that's all that I wanted to talk about with you today for notebooking with younger children. It is. So anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I've understood that the more thumbs up that it has, the more that YouTube is likely to show it as a recommended video to others. So I would appreciate if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, also, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button. And if you like my work and would like to see more of what I have to say or watch more of my videos, you can check out my Patreon page and see what rewards I have there. And I hope you have a great day.